I am madly in love with friendship between families. It is always important that there are people with whom you can talk and discuss everyday problems. I didn't understand before people who, after marriage, close themselves in their little world, stop seeing friends and go into a boring routine. I thought so, but due to the recent events that have happened in my life, I had to change my mind a little.
Fate unexpectedly brought me together with my future wife, Jacqueline, but just as unexpectedly, I learned of her infidelity. These two events, separated by years, occurred in the same place, at my workplace. The beginning of my career was entirely accidental. I entered the University of Hawaii with a clear goal to obtain an MBA and secure a position at one of the top companies. Despite receiving a public education, I still had to work to pay for my studies. Even in high school, I was fascinated by computers, and to earn money in college, I started using my skills to repair and assemble computers, selling them for less than their market value. After obtaining my bachelor's degree, I decided not to pursue graduate studies because why work for someone else when I could start my own business? In college, I realized that I had difficulty interacting with people, but this lesson was just as valuable as my degree. I met Jacqueline's brother, Don, before I met her. Don had issues with his father's computer, or more precisely, with an old gaming console and TV. Don's father was a nostalgic fan of this technology, and Don wanted to restore it for his birthday. Despite the device not working for over 10 years, Don found it in the attic. Don was built like a brick, with a wide, almost rectangular chest. In his youth, he played football and grew out long chestnut hair and a beard, giving him an exotic appearance. His large nose, resembling a trunk, and the name Don inevitably led to the nickname Mastodon, which stuck with him thanks to his football fans mimicking elephant sounds. Despite his imposing appearance, Don was incredibly friendly. I have always admired people whose actions speak louder than their words. Such a person was Don, a guy who didn't hesitate to help those he had just knocked down on the football field get back on their feet. His fairness and impressive athletic achievements were known to everyone. Had it not been for a knee injury in his final year at the University of Hawaii, who knows, his sports career might have been successful. Nonetheless, Mastodon, belonging to the Hawaiian royal family, was no less impressive, though sports had little to do with him. My heart always belonged to the Rainbow Warriors. Yes, that's the real name of our team, established long before the rainbow became a fashion symbol. Despite spending 4 years at the university studying something I didn't enjoy, it couldn't kill my loyalty to this place. And then one day, Mastodon, the most enviable bachelor in Hawaii, suddenly appeared before me, Carl Novak. With a friendly slap on the back that nearly broke my shoulder, he announced that his bachelor days were numbered as he had found a brave woman willing to become his wife. With a smile, I noted that beauty, apparently, was a relative thing in their family, and offered my service at a lower price as a sign of respect for his persona, not forgetting to ask for an autograph for my collection. Just 2 weeks later, I met Jacqueline, who came to pick up Don's repaired computer. Her long chestnut hair curled just like her brother's, but in other respects, she was different. Her nose was less prominent, she was slightly shorter, and overall, she was a more elegant and attractive version. Her appearance might not have been stunning at first glance, but she had a genuine appeal and natural sensuality. Thanks to Jacqueline, I met Candace, my wife's best friend and the wife of her brother, Don. Candace and Jacqueline, my wife, have been inseparable since their youngest years. Candace fell in love with Don as soon as she entered her teens, and eventually, he took notice of her. According to our mutual friends, Candace turned into a true beauty, embodying the exotic allure often depicted in advertisements for tropical resorts, a mix of Asian and Polynesian heritage. No wonder Don couldn't resist her charm, even though I wasn't part of their long-standing memories. Candace always avoided the nickname Candy, arguing that she didn't want to be associated with the image of a frivolous girl. I discovered this one night when she shared her thoughts on the matter with me. Soon after Don and Candace's wedding, Jacqueline and I also got married and had 2 children. Don and Candace, not having children of their own, decided to adopt. Thus, our friendship grew even stronger as we went through the adoption process together, which took a lot of time and effort. Our lives were filled with happiness, The children played together, and we were almost inseparable, supporting each other in everything. But as it's known, perfect happiness is rarely everlasting. My career in computer repair and assembly, as well as the restoration of old arcade games and home gaming systems, allowed Jacqueline to not work and dedicate herself to the family. It was a time when we all felt part of something bigger, living in harmony and supporting each other. Everything changed when our children grew up and started going to school. Jacqueline expressed a desire to work part-time, and I fully supported this decision. After all, I didn't want her to feel bored at home. Thus, Jacqueline found a job at a call center for a company that issues credit cards. The job only took 4 hours a day, allowing her to easily drop off the kids at school and pick them up after classes. We were happy, like a family from a model advertisement. However, it was Candace, my future daughter-in-law, who one day unveiled a truth to me that came as a shock. On a regular workday, she called me with an urgent request to fix her computer, explaining that she was helpless without it, as all her stories were stored exclusively on its hard drive. After a brief lecture on the importance of backing up data, I got to work and soon found the cause of the malfunction: unwanted software downloaded by Candace. But curiosity got the better of me, and I stumbled upon a photo sent by Jacqueline, depicting her sleeveless handsome boss, Hunter Sampson, with Jacqueline's caption, "Look at this hunk, girlfriend." Further investigation revealed that this photo, showing Jacqueline's boss flaunting his muscles, was sent to her, and then Jacqueline shared it with her best friend. Candace, wasting no time, decided to get details from Jacqueline. Jacqueline tried to dodge the question, calling the situation harmless and claiming it was just a photo of their boss surfing. But Candace was adamant, pointing out that Jacqueline was on the verge of crossing a line. Later, I spoke with my wife, and Jacqueline backed down in the face of my insistence, admitting that she would not support any actions that could harm our relationship. She assured me that everything was fine, but I found it hard to believe her words, especially after Candace expressed her disapproval and she started making excuses. Doubts led me to inspect Jacqueline's laptop. Knowing my profession, she certainly understood the need to delete any compromising messages. However, one folder remained untouched, the one containing discussions about unusual smells. This folder was a real revelation for me. It contained correspondences that clearly indicated a prior dialogue. In one of the messages, Jacqueline sent a photo of her chest, resisting Hunter's requests for more revealing pictures. She promised to send them only if he shared his in return, to which he replied that it was impossible to adequately convey himself through a photo and that she needed to see him in person. After that, their correspondence became even bolder, and yes, they started meeting. Each of their meetings was full of passion, and they eagerly anticipated the next opportunity to see each other. Faced with this revelation, I did what anyone would do upon finding such in their spouse's personal correspondence. I decided that we needed to have a serious face-to-face conversation that very evening. It was important to discuss everything delicately and cautiously, as the children had school in the morning, and I didn't want our talk to cause neighbors to call the police. Moments like these are remembered by children for a lifetime. Thus, as I was returning home that evening, I cautiously responded to her question about how my day went. "Let's talk about it later." Her look, full of care, made me think that she probably noticed my anxiety. Apparently, my facial expression betrayed my inner turmoil. She didn't press me, and we calmly had dinner, put the kids to bed, and settled on the sofa. Then she turned to me. "Tell me what's bothering you. You know, you can always share with me." Her support was invaluable, especially considering how difficult it is for men to openly talk about their feelings. "You make it so easy for me," I admitted, touching her hand. Jacqueline seemed touched by my confession. "Of course, tell me," she confidently replied. But when I expressed my concerns about her relationship with her boss and started talking about divorce, she suddenly withdrew her hand. Her face turned pale, and she left the room with the expression of someone feeling trapped. Her reaction and subsequent departure were so far from how I had envisioned our conversation. I had planned it down to the smallest detail, but her leaving upended all my plans. Finding myself in the role of the sole parent, I faced the need to adapt our lives to new circumstances without the opportunity to express my feelings or get explanations. Jacqueline disappeared for 2 days without a trace, leaving me clueless about her whereabouts and condition. Trying to protect the children from pain, I explained their mom's departure as a visit to relatives, which, surprisingly, turned out to be true. Learning from Don, Jacqueline's brother, that she was with them, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Don's invitation to discuss the situation without the children was the opportunity I had been waiting for to finally express everything that had built up inside me. That evening, Jacqueline and I settled into cozy armchairs opposite Don and Candace, who were sitting on the sofa. Looking back, I realized that such seating was not accidental. It seemed as if they were not taking sides, and Jacqueline and I were under the invisible scrutiny of judgment. Don was the first to break the silence, starting the conversation with a personal admission. "Carl, I value you. You have been an excellent husband to my sister, and I will always respect you for that. But I cannot deny that my sister has caused you pain, and it pains me too, brother." My hands gripped the armrests of the chair tightly as I responded, expressing gratitude for his empathy, and added that I wished Hunter could also feel this pain. I would like him to experience it, as that's exactly how I feel now. Candace cautiously intervened. "You don't mean physical violence, do you?" To which I replied with slight irony that I would prefer to use a cricket bat, as it, in my opinion, would do less harm. Candace, keeping her composure, asked why not a baseball bat, to which I answered that I didn't want to end up behind bars for assault, and that a cricket bat would probably cause less injury. I like the thought of how this flat bat would smack him on the butt. I want his body to hurt so much that it would be painful for him to even put on or take off clothes. I shared my feelings, but Don immediately pointed out the practical drawbacks of my plan. First, we live on an island where no one plays cricket, so finding a cricket bat would be difficult. Second, violence is never a solution to the problem, I countered, mentioning the historical example of how violence stopped fascism in Europe, but Don parried, noting that comparing Hunter to a Nazi was incorrect. "You're right, there's no comparison. In fact, a Nazi never slept with my wife. But you know what's worse? Lies and deceit. It's the betrayal of trust that's so hard to rebuild." I paused for a moment in silence, feeling the gaze of everyone present, waiting for my reaction to her words. Jacqueline, trying to salvage the remnants of our relationship, sincerely admitted to her actions, claiming that her affair was only 7 times. I simply nodded, ironically thinking about how her relief from only 7 times sounded so odd. Don, trying to avoid specifics, reminded us that it's not the number of times that matters, but Jacqueline's desire to correct the situation and her sincere remorse. Candace supported him, rhetorically questioning my ego, to which I, without hesitation, confirmed that yes, it was a matter of my ego. Don tried to persuade me, talking about forgiveness as a gift and the opportunity to overcome one's ego for the sake of true love. The discussion moved to hypothetical situations about the possibility of forgiving infidelity, and with a good dose of sarcasm, I suggested Jacqueline meet someone else if it could help us get back together. In turn, she candidly confessed that her actions were not about her feelings towards me, but were driven by personal insecurity and the desire to feel wanted. Candace, accepting Jacqueline's words, showed sisterly support, comforting her with the idea that the beauty of men is insignificant compared to their inner world. At that moment, I realized that the conversation had strayed far from the original topic, and my thoughts were more about myself and how I perceived the situation than about the relationship itself. I did everything I could to rectify the situation, turning to Candace. "You know, Candace, you value your friendship with your best friend, and you consider me a good friend. If I betrayed Jacqueline, could you help me restore our relationship?" Suddenly, Candace was distracted from the emotional tension and said, "Listen, she lived her life. What she did has nothing to do with you. She led a double life." I objected, saying that sounded absurd. "I understand that it's hard for men to comprehend," continued Candace, "but many women are capable of doing such things." I turned to Don. "If Candace cheated on you for 3 months, would you forgive her?" Don looked at me irritably. That's an absurd question. Candace is not the person who would betray and jeopardize our marriage. Jacqueline, tears in her eyes, Dawn faced the reality of my words, admitting that temptation could touch anyone, including Candace. She always resists temptations, but I would forgive her if she succumbed, he said, adding that his love for Candace is above everything. This moment seemed ridiculous to me, and I decided to ask Candace directly, "Have you ever cheated on Dawn?" Her answer was emotional. She hesitated and then said, "I think for you to be able to forgive Jacqueline and for the conflict between you to be resolved, you need to have an affair, have sex with another woman." Suddenly, Jacqueline, overwhelmed with emotions, collapsed into a fetal position. Candace immediately went to her. "No, Jacqueline, you're not a bad person. Having sex with someone else doesn't make you bad. It's not about the money, it's about your struggle with self-esteem." Jacqueline, in tears, began hitting herself in the face, causing Dawn to question the need to call an ambulance. At that moment, as Dawn and Candace held Jacqueline's hands, I tried to calm everyone down, but Jacqueline continued to hit herself. At some point, it all ended. I turned to Candace and said, "Let's get this straight. Did I understand everything correctly? Jacqueline thinks I need an affair. Dawn claims he would forgive cheating, and you say there's nothing wrong with wanting closeness with someone attractive, right?" Dawn nodded in confirmation. "And you, Candace, are saying that I should love Jacqueline as much as you love, considering that I am married to her, right?" I continued. "After all, I took on responsibilities when I got married, Dawn, and it seems I'm more concerned about her happiness than you are. She is indeed attractive," I added. "You've made me think seriously," I continued. "Perhaps it's time to apologize and end this conversation. I like Dawn, Candace, and of course Jacqueline. Giving her up would be unbearable." But that evening turned into a real circus, and not in a good way. Leaving, I felt that I had damaged their relationships, though it seems none of them cared about me as much. At home, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, pondering until a deep night revelation came. After a couple of hours of restless sleep, a doorbell ring woke me up after the first cup of coffee. Yes, it was the coffee that woke me up. "I don't even remember sending the kids to school. Not sure if they had breakfast," I continued. When Candace appeared at my doorstep, I invited her in, albeit warily due to the previous day's chaos. Pouring her a cup of coffee, I said, "Sorry about the mess yesterday." Her response that she was sorry too almost made me choke on my coffee. "I've come to the conclusion that you might be more interested in her well-being than I am. I have a proposal," I said, pausing dramatically. "We should start an affair for 7 meetings, after which Jacqueline will be fully forgiven." "You said you wanted me to forgive Jacqueline, so I believe your words." I finished. "But before I think about this, I need to discuss it with Dawn. It could ruin everything," she said. "Jacqueline kept this from me, lied, and left me in the dark. It must be the same thing. Dawn has already said he would forgive me, so you don't need to ask him," I continued. "Jacqueline never told me about it. I found out on my own. Tell him when it's all over if you want, but not before. It would be just as low as Jacqueline's behavior," I said. "How can I see Dawn every day and keep this a secret?" she asked. "You have to share your life. You said women can do that better than men," I said. "I'm not sure I can. Why don't you just find someone else?" she said. "I'm almost certain I won't find anyone else who attracts me as much. I might have to hire an escort, but that's not satisfying. You have a personal stake and a magnificent body, so you're my choice," I replied. "I'll have to think about it," she said, which usually means no. No wonder Candace didn't really mean what she said that night. She just didn't want any of it. 2 days later, Candace changed her mind. "I've decided to accept your offer," she said. I'd like to think it was because of my irresistible charm, but more likely, the reason was more mundane and predictable. She came to me in a rage, without even knocking, just barged into the house. "I can't take it anymore," she said. "She's taking Dawn away, and I'm going crazy. She's ruining my marriage. That idiot spends all day with her and supports her. I understand everything, but this is too much." I could have made some sarcastic remark, but preferred to focus on business, especially when things were going so smoothly. After all, I did have solid arguments, but Candace accepted all my conditions unconditionally. Her only requirement was that I sincerely forgive Jacqueline if she, Candace, fulfilled her obligations. I was surprised by her willingness to compromise, not expecting such readiness. After a brief hesitation and a short pause, I heard her full agreement. "I'm doing this only because you're my best friend," I thought, though not without some displeasure, realizing that her consent was indeed important to me. We began to discuss the details of our plan. It was clear that immediate reconciliation with Jacqueline would raise suspicions. "How will we convince Jacqueline and Don that you're accepting Jacqueline again?" she wondered. I already had the answer: to suggest to Jacqueline the bridge of life on the same day. Calling her during lunch break, I said, "Jacqueline, you need to inform HR about your relationship with Hunter. But understand, I cannot claim it was sexual harassment." "I won't lie," she replied. "And you won't have to," I reassured her. "I'm not asking you to do anything unethical that would go against your principles. In the employee handbook, I found a policy that prohibits romantic relationships between a supervisor and a subordinate as a measure against sexual harassment. You really work for a wonderful company. Just report the relationship." It turned out that Hunter was married to a very wealthy woman and had a prenuptial agreement with her. It was like a gift from fate when your opponent puts himself in a vulnerable position, and all you have to do is nudge circumstances in the right direction. Hunter faced serious problems, and after Jacqueline followed my advice, he was never seen in Hawaii again. Greeting Jacqueline at the doorstep, I enveloped her in tender embraces and kisses, shadowing the evening with passion, as if trying to rekindle our former feelings. Despite the conditions of our reunion and my doubts, Jacqueline and I again felt like a whole, as if nothing had changed. However, deep down, I knew that the barrier between us hadn't disappeared, and only Candace's decision could tear down this invisible wall. Jacqueline understood this well, confirming my fears about the insurmountable barrier between us. At the same time, preparing for our first meeting with Candace, I was determined to make it unforgettable. I booked a hotel room with a luxurious bed scattered with rose petals. Candles flickered with warm light, creating a cozy atmosphere, while I set the mood for romance, disabling the smoke alarm to ensure nothing would interrupt our date. A bottle of champagne and a vase of fresh strawberries were to be the final touch in this scenario of forbidden passion, where I intended to play the role of the perfect lover. I was geared up for mutual participation in this game and eagerly awaited the meeting, even though part of me feared Candace might back out. But I was resolutely set on maintaining the atmosphere and believing she would reciprocate. Otherwise, we would simply return to where we started. But I was ready to contribute and hope for the best. My plans were disrupted by the arrival of Candace, who unexpectedly showed up in a long coat inappropriate for the weather, carrying an item that resembled a sleeping bag. She was skeptical about the idea of strawberry champagne, to which I, unable to hide my irritation, pointed to my reputation as a superb lover, emphasizing that striving to be the best for her was pointless. Her requests to remove the pink petals from the bed and to avoid strawberries were in vain, and I suggested she take a moment to relax in the bathroom. Upon returning from the bathroom, Candace, dressed in an overly small black bra and black panties, seemed to transform into a temptress with "Take Me" shade lipstick. She declared that from that moment on she was Candy, and our connection would be purely physical, without unnecessary emotions or names. My dissatisfaction turned into passion when our tongues intertwined in an unexpected dance of desire, erasing all my previous plans and expectations. Candy, now fully taking the initiative, effortlessly flipped me onto the bed, demonstrating her determination and passion. Afterward, lying in post-orgasmic stupor, I carefully listened to her words, which sounded like law. There would be no sex with Candace, only candy and uncompromising intimacy. She warned that any mistake on my part would be unacceptable, forcing me to comply with her rules. Reflecting on this, I wondered whether such an approach was a form of manipulation, though perhaps it was just a play of endorphins. In any case, Candy desires more, and I have no right to disappoint her. Each of our encounters was a reenactment of the first, enveloped in passion and desire. She aroused excitement in me, and we delved into a world of pleasure, particularly favoring passionate moments in the doggy position. Her words, laden with challenge and play, sometimes made me wonder whether it was hatred or attraction between us. But over time, I realized it was a blend of both feelings, intensifying with each meeting. Organizing these encounters became increasingly challenging. Our secret attraction demanded creativity and caution, complicated by unexpected calls from Jacqueline, who always assured me of her fidelity, unaware of the infidelity. This added to my difficulties, as I had to maneuver to keep my secret. Candace seemed to try hiding our affair from those around her as well. We never discussed it openly, but each of our meetings was filled with passion and intensity, like a marathon of forbidden pleasures. Over time, I noticed my feelings towards Jacqueline changing. Meeting Candace helped me see my relationship with my wife in a new light, discovering new depth and attachment. Interestingly, Jacqueline might have been experiencing similar feelings, maintaining her own affairs on the side, yet still loving me. Awkwardness only arose when we met in a group of 4, and any innocent remark could unleash a wave of memories and hidden emotions. One such moment occurred when Don expressed his admiration for me, assuming that I had chosen the path of honor, resisting the temptation for revenge through flirting or an affair, which left me with mixed feelings and made me ponder the fine line between the appearance of a situation and its true essence. In those moments, I particularly wanted to avoid direct eye contact with Candace, maintaining an appearance of calm and control. Discussing topics with sexual undertones was always challenging for me, especially when our children were playing nearby, and the adults were enjoying wine. One such evening, as the morning rays began to light up the sky, Jacqueline seized the moment to confess that thanks to me, we had found our way back to each other. Her kiss took me by surprise, and after our lips parted, I tried my best not to meet Candace's gaze. This was not difficult, as Candace also tried to avoid our eye contact. Jacqueline and Candy seemed like two different people. Candy sent me messages before our meetings, in which Jacqueline seemed to disappear, leaving room for Candy. I worried that I might inadvertently be fueling a split personality disorder, but quickly dismissed these thoughts, as my goal was in the noble mission of saving our marriage. Sacrifices, as they say, are inevitable on the path to great deeds. Photos of Candy in seductive outfits that she sent me excited me, even though I had seen her naked before. My liaisons with Candy became a physical manifestation of my arguments before Don and Jacqueline, highlighting that Candy was incredibly attractive. My relationships with them were shrouded in doubts about the future, but I maintained an idealistic hope. Candy always kept her word, except for our last night together, which lasted longer than usual since we did not have to worry about being caught. After that night, Candace made it clear she intended to reveal the whole truth to Don, leaving us with a final explosion of passion. The subsequent moments were full of intensity as she clutched my head between her thighs, and then, lying on her back, trembled from the sensations experienced. We were both shaking, with a ringing in our ears from our closeness. Lying in silence, which seemed eternal, Candy was the first to break it, asking how I felt. Her words, spoken with a light laugh and a girlish voice, suggested ending our encounter on a high note, not continuing further. Her comment that the rumors of my inadequacy were unfounded added lightness to our farewell. After that, I experienced a few more moments of bliss, not counting how many she had, while we both did not hide our emotions. I was surprised that the neighbors in this budget motel didn't complain about us. Apparently, our passionate love was interfering with their intimate moments. After a passionate night filled with moans and emotions, I was the first to head to the shower to somehow recover. Exiting the shower, I discovered that the sweets Candace and I had shared had vanished without a trace. Emerging from the bathroom in my usual modesty, Candace seemed to confirm that our saga had ended. Those moments of pleasure were sweet, but I understood that such a life was not for me. Sweet is good, but in moderation. There was neither a farewell kiss nor warm words. All we had were plans for the future. Candace planned to reveal the whole truth to Don that evening, and then we would tell Jacqueline. It was a family matter. We agreed to meet at my place after the kids went to bed to lay all our cards on the table. Unfortunately, Don was delayed, leaving just the three of us, me, Candace, and Jacqueline. I started first, confessing my feelings to Jacqueline and my readiness to forgive. Jacqueline was moved and gratefully looked at Candace, who confessed her actions. Jacqueline's reaction was unexpected. She hugged Candace, expressing sincere gratitude for her deed, calling her a true friend. That moment was full of love and acceptance, and Candace, reciprocating the hug, affirmed she had done the only right thing. I had expected a completely different outcome, thinking all these confessions were just a farce. But I was wrong, especially in my assumptions about the honesty of women in this situation. When I realized my mistake, I was not shy to admit it, despite the pain it might cause. I became part of their group hug, turned to Jacqueline with warmth in my voice, and said that all grievances were forgotten. My words to her were sincere. "I dream of sharing all my days with you." Her reaction was immediate. She threw herself at me, and our lips met in a kiss. "Thank you, dear. You won't regret it," she whispered in my ear. This moment became a revelation of important life lessons for us. As the emotions settled a bit, I looked at Candace and admitted, "You opened my eyes to many things, for which I am grateful. Forgive my misunderstanding. You taught me true love." Her hug and kiss were full of tenderness, unlike any before. "I did it for both of us. You're meant to be together," she said. And at that moment, the doorbell rang. Approaching the door, I realized how much I needed to rethink. My journey to self-discovery was painful but enlightening, as I saw the true face of self-sacrifice of those around me. My bias towards others and misconceptions about my own selfishness dissipated. I had to apologize to many, but especially to Don. Tears welled up in my eyes from the realization of how much I had learned about myself and how much I still needed to change. Don, with his distinct expression and hoarse voice, reminded me that perhaps we all misunderstood the male ego. This discovery was new to me and required time to digest. But when I finally understood it, I was overcome with uncontrollable rage. This is it, I thought at that critical moment, faced with two urgent questions. Where did he get a cricket bat so quickly? And could I escape through the back door before he caught up with me? Deciding that the answer to the first question could wait, I rushed to the back door, hoping to slip away from the inevitable fight because apparently Don did not share our happiness.
That's the end of the story. Write your opinion in the comments about this story. It will be interesting for us to read it. Also, do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new, equally interesting and exciting stories. Good luck!